Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. And joining me is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing well. The vibes are awesome. I love wins, of course. I love weeks after wins, but I mean, everybody in the nation, I feel like, is turned towards this game, even though it's on the Monday night. Everyone's breaking down this game. Everyone's talking about this game. Exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, it feels like the intensity of how people are talking about the Chargers has ratcheted it up to a million, right? Like they're getting breakdowns of Lad McConkey on NFL Live. They're getting Chargers talk on Colin. Well, Colin kind of always talks about them because he loves Jim Harbaugh, but the amount of attention the Chargers are getting has really cranked up. Like Thule was on the Jim Rome show this week. Quentin Johnson was on the Kay Adams show this week. Ladd was on the Pat McAfee show this week. So the Chargers are everywhere right now in a good way. Usually it's not this kind of attention that we're used to seeing them get. So the vibes are immaculate. Everything is trending up with Jim Harbaugh, and it's a huge game on Monday night with the Baltimore Ravens. It's the Harbaugh Bowl. It was one of the first things we were looking forward to seeing on the Chargers schedule release is when they would be doing it. And it just so happens to be that it's Monday night of Thanksgiving week with a ton on the line from a playoff perspective. The Ravens are coming off a loss against the Steelers. The Chargers are riding a lot of momentum. So it's a lot of storylines, a lot of headlines, and I can't wait to break it all down.
Yeah, it's for those asking, I will definitely obviously be there at the game. I don't know what it's going to be like. I can't remember the last time I was this hyped for a home game.
Yeah, it has certainly been a minute. There's obviously been a lot of like preseason hope and hype for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even during like the 2021 season, there was a lot of positivity around that team up until the very end. But like it all changed, in a hurry once that the infamous Texans game happened. So it's been a long time, since probably 2018. And even then, there was the whole Carson thing, and it wasn't just like, it was just a different kind of vibe, even though that team was really good. All right, so we're gonna dive right into this matchup real quickly. Want to acknowledge Dark Samus with a super chat. He says Warren, I assume that's Tyler Warren, Walker, Dion Walker, Kenneth Grant, and Colston Loveland are the most mock draft players to the Chargers right now. I've seen a lot of Colston Loveland. I haven't seen a ton of the other players, but people are starting to pay attention to mock drafts. If you are watching mock drafts, definitely check out Katzen's Corner with Alex Katzen, who does a wonderful job on this channel highlighting draft prospects. And then Anthony Navarro says, let's go, Bull fam. Let's set the tone first play of the game. I loved hearing in the mini movie, like in the tunnel, when Jim Harbaugh was just yelling at everybody to go hit somebody, right? Like they just want to see them play physical, fast football, and they sure did on Sunday night, and hopefully that continues to Monday night.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, Perryman had a good hit. Cam Hart definitely had a good hit. Even if there weren't many hits, plenty of pass breakups that game. Plenty physical in that game for sure.
Yeah. And yes, this is the Navy game upcoming. So the Chargers are only wearing the Navy uniforms once this year, which we'll see what happens. I don't know where, on the on the curse aisle you stand, and we'll see kind of what, jerseys have change going forward. But I love the Navies. I wish they would wear them more often. So hopefully we can get some more Navy going forward. All right, let's dive into this matchup. Again, Chargers, Ravens, ton on the line, lots of big storylines. We always kind of look at specific coaching decisions that might be had in this game, whether that's a matchup or a schematic thing. So, Tyler, let's start there. What coaching storyline are you looking for from this Chargers staff as they prepare for Jim Harbaugh's brother, the Ravens, coming to town?
Yeah, so the last time they played any kind of quarterback, running back, rushing duo like they did, I think was the worst they've looked on defense. Now, they've allowed more points against the Bengals like we just saw, but I think the most overwhelmed the defense looked, the most mistake-prone defense looked was with the combination of Murray, the runner, and, of course, James Conner as the runner, of course, and then after the catch as well. They were very, I think, prepared for it, but they missed opportunities. We talked about Thule's 4 missed tackles. I think Don Henley had 4 missed tackles. They really, really struggled with that duo, and Kyler Murray had 60 rushing yards himself. It's cranked up to 11 this week. Even if you think Murray and Jackson as a scrambler, as a runner, is a wash, which even then I disagree. Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, and the offensive player of the year potentially should all, things all go well for him. Yeah, there's some competition there, but he's at least one of the front runners. He's been outstanding, and it is a whole different beast. And that's saying something because James Conner forced 16 missed tackles, I think, against the Chargers in that game. So how do they play them this week? How do they make up for the mistakes they made in that previous game against the Cardinals? And then can they do it potentially without several players who are key to being physical? I mean, Denzel Perryman is TBD. Cam Hart, obviously not like a linebacker, but very much so a physical tackler and player. And then Khalil Mack, a very big part of the run defense. Is he out there? Is he not? How much can he be out there? I'm not sure. So how do they make up for those losses potentially this week? How do they attack them? Can they play lighter boxes this week? You don't like Zay Flowers is a very, very good receiver, but like which poison are you drinking in this game in particular? They're going to lose to somebody. Somebody is going to get the better of them. It's just curious. Do you allocate your resources towards Derrick Henry and hope that your corners who have been playing very well can figure it out on the back end? How does that look this week? There's a big decision from Jesse Minter because they have to lose somewhere. So what's it going to be?
Yeah, very curious to see what the answer is here, especially if Denzel Perryman misses this game. Already down Junior Colson. My thought process heading into this game has not been super optimistic in terms of their chances of winning the game, and we'll get into that later on in the show. But I trust that they'll be competitive and they'll manufacture ways for them to make this at least a close game. Losing Denzel Perryman potentially is huge for this game. Denzel Perryman is just doing all of the dirty work so well, and he's flying around, playing physical. He's been a real treat to watch, and so not having him against Derrick Henry, it's a real bummer. I was really looking forward to seeing some Denzel Perryman, Derrick Henry collisions because those two players are just like heat-seeking missiles out there. So they're going to have to change. Like they cannot play the way that they have played everybody else this season, because if you play light boxes against the Baltimore Ravens, it is not going to be pretty. The Baltimore Ravens, they run 2 tight end or 2 back sets with Patrick Ricard at the 3rd highest rate in the league, only trailing the Chargers, as well as, oh my gosh, I forgot who the other team was. Oh, the New England Patriots. So the Patriots actively don't have a wide receiver. And they're playing Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper a ton on the field together to kind of manufacture some touches. The Chargers, we all know, they play a lot of Scott Matlock. They play a lot of the tight ends. And so the Ravens with Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, and Patrick Ricard, they're running multiple tight end sets out there at a very, very high rate. And so if you are defending against this team with light boxes, it's not going to go super well unless you play like a perfect game. And so that was a big thing that the Cardinals did. The Cardinals ran a lot of 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets. They tried to get the Chargers into, not to stay, or they tried to get them, basically dared them to play light boxes, and they continued to do that, and it didn't go so well on defense, at least. So how do they manufacture that is super interesting to me, how Jesse Minter responds to this. Individually with Derrick Henry, he already has more rushing yards than he did the entirety of last season in Tennessee. In 17 games last year, he had 1,000 yards and 1,167 yards and 12 touchdowns. Already this season, with 90 fewer carries, he's at 1,185 yards and 13 touchdowns. And he's averaging 6 yards a carry. So he's obviously found a great, relationship with the Baltimore Ravens and their rushing attack. And if you play light boxes against Derrick Henry, it's just kind of been this way for a long time. It's not going to go great. And then you also add in the Lamar Jackson aspect of that.
Yeah, I don't even know what they decide this week. I understand any direction they go. And this is one of the games where they just don't have all the horses and all the and especially if the guys are injured, to stop everybody. The Pittsburgh Steelers have those guys. They definitely have those guys. Chargers, not yet, not as much. Great defense, but yeah, what a heck of a matchup.
Yeah, so I think this is probably a game where you play a little bit more static in the back end. The Chargers do a ton of disguise post snap, and I think you probably got to stick there when James are on the box along with the two linebackers and see how it goes. All right, for me, I want to see how the Chargers on offense go about making sure that Ladd McConkey gets his touches. And might seem pretty obvious, but the Chargers and Ravens in this matchup, it's on the perimeter, kind of a best on best situation because Marlon Humphrey, the Ravens' best cornerback, is their primary slot corner. If you look at the matchups where he spends more time on the outside, it's usually when the other team has a Jamar Chase level kind of receiver who he'll go and shadow those kind of players. But for the most part, he's playing about 70% of his snaps in the slot outside of those games where he's shadowing a legit like X receiver. And not to say that Ladd hasn't beaten any great corners, right? Like we talked about this with Alex Katzen on show. Like he played great against Alontae Taylor, who I think probably is better than Marlon Humphrey. So it's not about like not trusting Ladd individually. It's more so about trying to scheme up touches against the other guys, right? So Marlon Humphrey's a great player, but where teams have had a lot of success against the Ravens is attacking the other cornerbacks on their roster. It's attacking on the boundary. It's attacking vertically, when they can go after these other cornerbacks who are not Marlon Humphrey. So you got to get Ladd involved. We all know that at this point in time. We talked a little bit about the film on Tuesday for Ladd, and the numbers are fantastic. His reception perception profile is elite at this point in his career. But you want to give him some easy touches too every now and then and not have to force him to go up against the opposing team's best cornerback when you can kind of put him on as the backside Z and kind of manufacture some touches that way.
Yeah, I mean, other than maybe the last catch to end the game, there wasn't a particular catch that was like a really easy catch for him. I mean, yeah, out and ups are awesome. Don't know how many times that'll always work. I mean, and he can do it, and clearly he can do it no problem. But, watching that game, I don't recall when his next target was, but there was maybe a 1.5 gap between McConkey's like second catch or third catch and his fourth one, where it was like the last drive. Suddenly it went, and I get that, Herbert missed him another time and there were some more targets, but he wasn't really as actively involved. And like you said, in particular, the word there is the easy touches, the easy ones. Where are those for Ladd McConkey? Doesn't matter so far. McConkey's been able to make it work regardless. It's crazy that I don't see him taking a screen per game, especially when the coaches and Ortiz have called him, mini Brock Bowers. Like, I don't know, like give it a shot, see what happens. I don't know if they're worried about the tackling that might, happen when guys can trigger downhill and hit him. But yeah, I'm all for it. I don't know what the number is for too many Ladd McConkey targets, but I haven't seen too many yet. I haven't seen what that is yet.
Yeah, and he is banged up right now. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. He did not practice yesterday. The Chargers did not practice today. So the injury report they released was from yesterday for what it's worth. I think this is a game where you probably need to manufacture some touches for Ladd to get him in a groove early and hopefully get him away from, having the most difficult matchup of the night. The other aspect of that is that Kyle Hamilton plays a lot in the slot. Now, granted, he does a lot more against like the tight ends and things like that. Yeah. So I trust Ladd to do his job, but I think this is a game where you probably have to do some more manufactured touches in order to get the offense moving.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. Love to see it.
All right, let's talk about what we are most excited to watch. For me, I'm going to flip sides here and go to the defense and specifically highlight Thule. We talked about his overall numbers and everything like that. I am not expecting a ton of production from the left side of the offensive line this week because Ronnie Stanley is playing like Ronnie Stanley this year. I don't think we'll see another 8 pressure game from Joey Bosa, who has looked better, but still is very clearly not 100%. So to me, where the Chargers have the biggest advantage is on the opposite side with Roger Rosengarten, who is the Ravens right tackle. He's a rookie out of Washington. And he's playing like well relatively for a second round rookie offensive tackle. Usually, those guys are guys that you have to give a lot of help to, and the Ravens have been doing that. But in true pass sets, he's got a pass blocking efficiency rating below 90 right now. And so this is a matchup where Tuli Tuipulotu should be able to create some opportunities for pressure at a higher rate than probably any other spot on the line.
Yeah.
The interior guys for the Ravens have been pretty solid, and obviously Tyler Linderbaum is an outstanding player, so you're not really expecting pressure from him. So if the Chargers are going to make life difficult on Lamar Jackson from a pressure standpoint, it's probably going to come from Tuli, just like in general, but especially this week against Roger Rosengarten. And if Khalil is back, that obviously helps that. So I'm excited to see Tuli continue to put his stamp on things, right? He's had an awesome stretch here over the last few weeks, and this upcoming matchup is a really, really positive one for him.
Yeah, that's Rosengarten, second round pick. I don't remember him going that high, but okay, I didn't realize he went in the second round there. Always liked him. I think most people generally liked Rosengarten as a prospect. It's just kind of maybe where you had him on the board. But I think Tuli or obviously Khalil Mack, if he plays and that sort of power they can bring, is just a specifically awful matchup for him. I don't know who he's been struggling more with this season, but yeah, that sounds great. Like, sorry, I liked Rosengarten. I'd love to say that like he turned out well, and maybe he will, but for a game, and so far maybe not as much. Once again, another example of maybe like the Joe Alt at 5 thing was a good idea because of what would happen in the second round. Granted, they picked earlier in the second round than the Ravens did, but like Joe Alt's, it's been pretty good.
Yes, very good from Joe Alt so far this season. So Rosengarten, I always thought it was kind of a head scratcher for that specific fit because he's kind of been, coming out of the draft, he was kind of pegged as like a very prototypical like Shanahan offensive tackle, like athletic mover, not super strong in the pants, if you will. And so him playing in Baltimore has been a little bit of a head scratcher. So I think he overall is a good player as Tyler takes a step away here for a second. But Rosengarten, to me, it's a matchup that Tuli should be able to create some pressure with. And in general, I think where the Chargers are going to create pressure is off of that right side. I mean, Daniel Falele is their right guard, and that I think could be a positive matchup for the Chargers as well. So the Ravens go Ronnie Stanley, and then oh my gosh, what's the kid from USC who tore his ACL? Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, and then the right side is kind of the issue. So for them, so Tuli, Puna, Tiertart, I'm focusing attention on that right side of the Ravens offensive line this week.
Awesome. Sorry, I had to leave there for a moment. Someone was knocking to spread the good word. I didn't realize that when I opened the door, but that's where I went.
No worries. Go ahead with yours, Tyler. What are you most excited to watch this week?
I've thought about a couple of players. I'm just going to specifically focus on Derwin James, and maybe it's going back to his rookie season and him staring across this Lamar Jackson guy, both of them drafted the same year, and just saying like, run right at me, dude. Run right here, right at me. I think there were maybe some expletives in there, but I don't recall it, so I won't repeat it. I think for as much hype as many players are getting, and it's Herbert and it's Lamar and it's McConkey and it's Khalil Mack plays or Joey Bosa or Tuli or whatever, you and I both felt after that game against the Bengals like, oh my God, Derwin James was awesome. And maybe we didn't even realize as much watching it live, but on the replay, we definitely could tell. And I just feel like I'm very excited to see this particular game for Derwin. I think this is the game where he outplays Kyle Hamilton and everyone goes, that's the safety again. Like that is Derwin James again. That's him being him. And people really start to break his game down more. For all the stuff I've seen this week, I don't think I've seen a ton of Derwin James. I think this is the game where we go, or like the national media goes, that guy's back. The guy we all fell in love with is back, and I think he'll have a fantastic game. He's got a huge role ahead of him. Like, good luck. It's Andrews, it's Lamar, it's Henry, like Zay Flowers in the slot, whatever. So much to do this game. And I think if the Chargers pull this off, we'll be looking back at this game and going, that guy was worth every penny they've paid him for one game.
Yeah. Well, I think he's having a much better season than like fans are indicating. So this is definitely a crucial game for Derwin. It's a crucial game for Dan Henley. They at the end of the Bengals game, they started to spy Joe Burrow with Dan Henley. This is definitely a game where you got to spy the quarterback, right? Like, and there were moments against the Cardinals where you just wish that they had been able to dedicate some resources to spy Kyler Murray, and they didn't really do that. They played a lot of zone coverage, obviously, so it's a little bit easier theoretically to have like rush lanes against a quarterback like that. So Deion Henley has a lot of responsibility this week. So does Derwin James. Mark Andrews, there were a lot of Chargers fans who wanted them to go trade for him, even though the Ravens are very much in the thick of a Super Bowl potential hunt kind of season. He's really turned things on recently, and we know what Isaiah Likely can do in key moments. Obviously, he had a huge game against the Chiefs to start the season. And so they've been using those two players against the tight ends quite a lot. Like the Chargers will do this thing where they'll match up Derwin and Deion against like a tight end and a slot receiver. And then the other DBs all have kind of zone coverage and help built into things. So they're going to have big responsibilities this week. I already mentioned the 2 tight end sets. They're going to play a lot of those. And so this is definitely a game where those 2 players have to, be on top of their P's and Q's. Deion Henley is starting to get some much deserved hype online. A lot of the film guys are talking about him. Derek Klassen of the Athletic Football Show, I asked him earlier this week if he thought Deion Henley was a Pro Bowl level player, and he said yes. And so Deion Henley is having that kind of season. He's garnering that kind of attention and doing it on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. It's how a guy like him makes the Pro Bowl, right? Because a lot of it is name recognition. But when teams and players go to look at Pro Bowl votes, because that still matters a lot, they'll go back and look at these primetime games and think, okay, like I remember Deion Henley had like a stripped forced fumble. He hit Derrick Henry, and popped him quite good. Stuff like that matters a lot for a Pro Bowl kind of season for somebody like Deion Henley.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, this changes the game for if they win this game and play well this game. Like this changes the game for the whole team to finally beat a team like this. And we'll get into all that sort of stuff as we get closer to the matchup. But yeah, Henley, that's a tough game. Isaiah Likely, I mean, we talk about Henry, Flowers, Andrews. You mentioned Isaiah Likely and what he can do. He just had 75 yards against the Steelers. Like the tight end too can just pop 75 yards like that. It's a heck of a matchup.
Yeah, there's not many tight end 2 types like Isaiah Likely that can just pop a 100-yard game or 75-yard game at any moment. So it's a pretty rare kind of company there. All right, Tyler, opposite side of the coin here. We can talk about several different things. We have talked about several different things about kind of what's maybe keeping us up at night. But for this specific segment, what is keeping you up at night about the Baltimore Ravens?
There's a chance most of the season's kind of a rinse and repeat with the whole like interior defensive line of the opposing team. But really, it's like the entire defensive line of the Ravens. Yeah. We knew this going into the game. It's still been, regardless of how the defense has performed for the Ravens, it generally hasn't been an issue of the defensive line. And, the Browns were a really good defensive line, but even I say this with big air quotes and like, you know what I'm trying to say here. The Browns only had Garrett as the only guy who had over, 30 pressures, but everyone else on the Browns, I don't know how they're doing right now against the Steelers, but no one else on the Browns had more than 14 pressures. This is a Ravens team with 3 guys over 30 pressures, 3 guys with over 6 sacks, 3 guys with over 15 stops. This is a nasty defensive line. That's not even talking about Travis Jones. This group, well, I don't know if he's going to play, but we'll see. But this is a heck of a group, and it's what's keeping me up at night because we've seen against the Steelers, we've seen against the Browns that this offense sputters when the line sputters. And I think against the Titans and Simmons, they played excellent. I think against the Bengals, they played excellent overall. This is that kind of beast. And this is what they'll see in the postseason. It's probably the Chiefs, the Steelers, maybe the Ravens again. They're going to have to play these lines. So it is the one thing that's keeping me – no, it is one of the things among things we've talked about that's keeping me up at night.
Yeah, Nnamdi Madubuike is fantastic, and I think Chargers fans know that. Formerly Justin, in case you missed that, he did change his name back to his given name. So shout out to Nnamdi for that. But yeah, this interior trio has looked a lot better, and we can talk about it later. But Zion Johnson is my X factor for this very reason, because Zion has played probably two of his best games of, from a 2-game stretch standpoint. This is probably the best that he's played in back-to-back games, allowing just the 2 pressures the last 2 weeks. His grades on PFF are much improved. And this is a game where Zion has to kind of squash some doubters, right? Squash the concerns that are very relevant and I think accurate for the way that he has played for the bulk of the season. And if he can shine in a moment like this, then it's going to kind of speak to what he's able to get to from here. If he gives up another 5 pressure, 2 sack performance like he did against the Browns, it's going to be, again, it's going to weigh heavily on how people look at Zion Johnson. Not to say that if he plays poorly, opinions will change by any means, but if he's able to play well, that helps him quite a bit. The other aspect of this is that Trey Pipkins is very clearly not 100%. He is on the injury report with an ankle injury, and he was hobbling around all game long, but still only allowed the 1 pressure against the Bengals. But again, it's Chris Jenkins and BJ Hill, who, like, all due respect to them, it's not Nnamdi Madueke and Travis Jones, who also is a fantastic player.
Yeah. No, so I'm seeing now from the chat and the internet that Myles Garrett already has 2 sacks and 3 pressures in this game.
Yeah.
So he's pretty good. The rest of the team, not so much.
He is pretty good. The other aspect of this is that this Ravens front is extremely good against the run. So they can rush the passer, but they are fantastic against the run as well. So I do have another segment, but just kind of branching off of this.
Yeah.
Make sure I get this right. Their run defense has only allowed 852 rushing yards on the season. That's second fewest in the league. Granted, you might think to yourself, okay, the Ravens have been leading a lot. Teams are not necessarily running the football a ton on them, but they have only allowed 3.4 yards per carry this season. They've only allowed 43 first downs on rushing attempts, and they're second in success rate and second in EPA per rush. So they're a good, stout run defense, man. And we've seen the Chargers offense have these moments where they get away from the run and things just kind of, sputter a bit from an offensive standpoint. And that's what happened on Sunday night against the Bengals, where for whatever reason, they just, kind of get away from the run game. And so you get back-to-back 3 and outs, you get a 4 and out in there, you get, a 6 and out, and this offense is just not able to put drives together. If you don't put drives together against Lamar Jackson, that's going to be a very difficult matchup for your defense. So how the Chargers go about manufacturing long drives, not even necessarily touchdown drives, but can they just consistently stay on schedule, is a huge challenge this week against a very, very talented defensive front, both from a run defense standpoint and a passing standpoint.
Yeah, and this is going to apply to every quarter, but Tamser's asking about like the third quarter meltdowns that they've been having. Maybe not necessarily against some teams like the Titans or the Saints or whatever, where they're clearly outscoring them by a good number. But yeah, they cannot suddenly go like they did against the Browns or against the Bengals. We're going to just go 3 and out 6 separate times because we are running inefficiently. We cannot pass protect. Herbert's off by a little bit. And then, oops, here comes the entire, team again. And the Ravens are far more talented. They have far more ways to beat the Chargers. Better coach team, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, they cannot just go, we'll just take like a 1.5 gap of scoring here. Obviously the Ravens are very talented in and of themselves, but like you said, if they cannot find a way to get McConkey to do anything, to get the free stuff from him, they're going to struggle.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the Chargers can be able to kind of get back some of that momentum from the previous game. I said on Tuesday's show, I felt like they blocked well on Sunday night. They just kind of stopped running the football. So very interested to see the response there. One thing that I do want to address, and this is, not that I don't trust Jesse Minter, but again, this is kind of a different beast than what we've seen them face in Lamar Jackson, the passer, right? Like I don't want to discredit who he is as a runner, but we're still getting comments in here. I'm still seeing the thing online that Lamar Jackson is just a running back who plays quarterback and like all this stuff. And it just needs to stop. Like Lamar Jackson as a passer is having one of the best seasons we've seen over the last 2 decades. So if you look at adjusted EPA per play or EPA per drop back, I should say, the that kind of accounts for the schedule that you're playing, right? So it takes into consideration more so the opponents and the game script and things like that, garbage time, etc. His adjusted EPA per dropback is a 0.299, which I know EPA can be kind of confusing, but 0.2 is extremely good. Justin Herbert's best season for reference in terms of EPA per dropback, which is 2021, was 0.218. Philip Rivers' best season in terms of adjusted dropback EPA per play was 0.255. So 0.299 is extremely good. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes, who lit the league on fire and was having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from any quarterback ever, he was at 0.308. So Lamar Jackson, as a passer, just as a passer, is not far off of what 2018 Patrick Mahomes was doing on the way to his MVP season. Lamar Jackson has increased his adjusted EPA per dropback tremendously from last season when he won the MVP award. What he's doing as a passer is extremely impressive. And I'm not saying this as like, it's not keeping me up at night in the same way that like Nnamdi Madubuike is, because that's a bad matchup for the Chargers potentially.
Yeah.
I do think the Chargers defense will have some answers for him, and they're a very well-coached, well-sound defense. But the season that Lamar is having as a passer is still somehow going unnoticed and properly not respected, because people have in their minds this draft prospect Lamar Jackson and the accuracy issues and things like that. Right now, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, period. And I think we need to realize that the kind of quarterback that the Chargers are facing on Monday night is, and then you add in the rushing ability, like just the passer ability here is, his adjusted EPA per play and completion percentage above expectation is well ahead of Joe Burrow, and they just struggled against Joe Burrow on Sunday night in the second half. So we need, as a fan base, to really understand that Lamar Jackson is a great passer and runner who plays quarterback. So this is more of a cry that we need to put some respect on Lamar Jackson's name, I guess.
Yeah. No, this is definitely not Bo Nix and the Broncos versus the Chargers that one time, or it's kind of like, you're playing Benny Hill in the background and he's just kind of like running around and then plays happen maybe. Yeah. Lamar Jackson this year, I mean, he was pretty good last year. We saw the step forward that the whole offense took. But this year, I mean, it's by far his lowest, except for his rookie year, but he barely played. His lowest turnover-worthy play rate. His pressure to sack rate is way down from what it was. Usually it's like in the 20s. Right now it's at 12%, which is incredible for a guy who buys that much time. The touchdown to interception ratio is great. I mean, 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like, he's not making mistakes all that often. It's a whole different Lamar Jackson. Like, it is elite play. It's great stuff. And, Athir, I see your comment, like you disagree that the Ravens are an average team at best. They aren't, because this guy, Lamar Jackson, is pretty freaking good, and Derrick Henry is good, and all these guys are good. But when we started to see Lamar start throwing for like 4 and 5 touchdowns multiple times this season and be as accurate as he is and avoiding the negative plays and avoiding the sacks, he's in a whole different realm right now. He's the best quarterback in football right now.
Yeah, and I see the comments, right? They also lost to the Raiders and the Browns. Yeah, like, teams lose games that they shouldn't all the time. They lost to the Raiders. You think
the Chargers are going to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Cardinals? Like, it happens.
Yeah. The Browns have a lot of talent, as we've seen, and they had the backup quarterback boost and things like that. I'm not trying to paint a picture that the Ravens are unbeatable, but I'm also trying to kind of pump out to the world that the Ravens are a really, really good team, specifically on offense, specifically on the defensive line. And yes, the Chargers are going to have some positive matchups as well in this game. We haven't really talked about like Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt versus the edge rushers, etc. I do think this could be a big Quentin Johnson game, etc. But what the Ravens do well presents a significant challenge for a defense that hasn't really been tested at this kind of level before. And again, the Bengals are a very, very good offense. The Cardinals are a very good offense. but the Ravens potentially have the MVP and Offensive Player of the Year on the same team in the same backfield. And then you have Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. This is a very tough group, and I hope Chargers fans are taking this seriously.
Yeah, we'll see. We are all feeling good, though. I know that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. All right, before we wrap up the show today, we do usually do our prize picks of the week on Saturdays, but of course have to do the ad, got to pay the bills, have to give a shout out to a great partner, and that is our friends over at PrizePicks. They are the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. Whatever kind of platform you're into in terms of NBA, NFL, college football, college basketball has started. I know some people are really, really into that. PrizePicks has you covered with the best and easiest way to, secure positive lineup experience. I mentioned this before. If you get 4 out of 5, you can still win a flex pay and still feel pretty good about yourself, as opposed to if you don't go 5 for 5 in some other platforms, and you lose out on your lineup for the entire week. So it's a great platform. I love all of the combinations they do, all the specials that happen each week. That is prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout for a deposit match. And you guys can be able to have some fun just like we do every single week. Tonight was probably not a great night for PrizePicks because it's a rainy divisional AFC North game. But hopefully you guys were able to get in on the action for Thursday Night Football and for Monday Night Football next week. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout. All right, Tyler, let's finish tonight's show with the X Factor of the week. I already gave one, so I'll probably give another one, but who is your X Factor of the week?
Guy who might be starting as the LB4 of this team, now going to be LB2. Against, I don't know, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. So good luck, buddy. That's Troy Dye. Now we'll see how much he plays. Even if he doesn't start and Perryman is able to jump in there a bit, he's going to play a decent amount. They've played 3 linebackers pretty consistently this year. Granted, that is more to get Colson involved, and Dye's technically more of a special teams guy. But Troy Dye in spot duty this year has been pretty good. I mean, he had 5 tackles and 3 stops against the Browns in 24 snaps. He had 3 stops and 3 tackles against the Bengals. They just played them. Wow, I can't believe I forgot that. So he's had to come in and play a little bit. We've seen him in the preseason. We thought he played really well. Thought he played well in training camp. A lot of good stuff there. Solid veteran guy for sure. This is like a huge game. This is the worst game to lose one of your starting linebackers. Technically 2 of them if you count Junior Colson. So Troy Dye this week, how he plays, how he fits. We praised so much about like the DBs. Hey, the DBs, lose a DB, add a DB, lose a DB, add a DB. Not a dramatic drop off. With Troy Dye, he hasn't shown any dramatic drop off in games, but they haven't exactly gone after him either. And this is the worst matchup of the year.
Yeah, it's such a bummer that Denzel Perryman might miss this game. But at the same time, Troy Dye has played well, as Tyler mentions, in spot duty. A very different kind of linebacker, right? Like he's more prone to like covering and more prone to, kind of being a space and chase linebacker. So that's going to put a little bit more pressure on Deion Henley to be able to be kind of the physical type of linebacker this week. And so how Troy Dye kind of responds to the challenge here. He is a pretty good athlete. He is somebody that I trust in coverage. Can he kind of maybe take some of that aspect off of Deion's play? Can he go cover Isaiah Likely on a few snaps? If he can, that all helps, right? It's the roles are going to have to be different. Deion's going to have to be, on his A game. But if Troy Dye can come in and have a couple key plays here and there, against Cleveland, he had a pass breakup and he had a sack. That kind of play is not out of the realm of possibilities for him. So I think it's a great call. Obviously, he's going to be starting. He's the third linebacker. So even if Perryman is able to go, we still probably see Troy Dye play a little bit just because the Ravens like to play in such heavy personnel every single week. Okay, so I mentioned Zion. The Chargers need him to play well. Obviously, that's not going to change. But X factor wise, you just kind of get a feeling that this game could really flip with a high-end kind of special teams play, right? The Ravens are not the same kind of special teams unit that they've been in the past. That's obviously how John Harbaugh came up, was through special teams. They don't really have that guy this year. Devin Duvernay went to a Pro Bowl as a return specialist. Justin Tucker has been the best kicker in the league for the majority of my adult life. That's not really the case anymore. Tylan Wallace is a fine punt returner, fine kick returner, but he's not Devin Duvernay-ish. So Darius Davis has had 3 big time returns since he's kind of come back from his health. And if you look at just since he returned from injury, he's actually 3rd in the league in punt return per attempt. He's averaging 16.6, which is right in line with what he did last season. That's what made him so great, was his ability as a punt returner. We were the first 4 games, we were trying to figure out if he was healthy, trying to figure out, did he lose his confidence? Because I think in the first 4 games, he's averaging like 8 yards a punt return.
It was terrible.
More fair catches. It was not very good. It was terrible. Sure. I think that's fair. He's back to Darius Davis from last year. And if he gets an opportunity to pop a big play, then it's huge, right? The Chargers have a kicker advantage in this game, as crazy as that sounds.
Wow. Holy cow.
So, I know, right? So if Darius Davis can give them an opportunity where they're instantly in Cameron Dicker's range, it just gives them so much flexibility, right? To take that drive a little bit more conservatively. So Darius as a return specialist, he also had a couple really cool plays on offense the last couple of weeks, saved a couple of series. So Darius is starting to look like Darius again, and I think this week it would be an awesome time for him to have a big moment.
Oh, I can't say there's nothing more exciting, but boy, every time he touches the football, like, you are fairly confident he's going to score.
Yeah.
Even on offense, and he hasn't so far this year, except for against the Cowboys in the preseason. But like, every time you just see him breaking those tackle angles, because he's just amazing. He's super talented, and they do try to get him involved. Typically, there's like a rush to the right, and then there's like not like a screen, but like they kind of motion him over to the flat and then dump it off to him. And there's blockers out in front of him. I'm sure we'll get 1, 2, or both of those things in this game. But yeah, that's a great X factor. And it is, I just want to like stop at your point for a second there. It is crazy that the Chargers have a kicker advantage against the Ravens, which you have not been able to say for, I don't know, a very, very long time.
Ever.
at least in the Tucker, the era. But even if Tucker were still good, like, Cameron Dicker's been pretty solid himself. So love it.
Yeah. So, Cameron Dicker's extra points have been well documented. It's not great, but Justin Tucker is 16 of 22 on field goal attempts. So he's at 72% field goal percentage right now. Like, that's not even like a little washed. Like, for a kicker, 72% is awful. So, this is it's an interesting special teams game. The Ravens definitely have the better punter. I will say that. So sure. Stonehouse is very capable of flipping the fields that J.K. Scott is not. But man, if J.K. Scott could have one of those games again, maybe they need to bring somebody for a workout in order to get the best out of J.K. Scott. But special teams is crucial this week. The Chargers might also be getting Dean Leonard back this week. He did practice in some capacity last week, so that could be, a little special teams X factor as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I guess Jacob has an X factor question. Am I going to the game, and am I bringing my sister? I will be going to the game. I'll be bringing my dad. And I don't remember the last time my dad went to a Chargers game and saw the team that he was rooting for win. So we'll see.
Tyler's dad is a Raiders fan. So
yes, for those who aren't aware, the only time he sees me cheer for the winning team is when it's beating the Raiders. We'll see.
Maybe he's a good luck charm then. I don't know.
True. We'll all find out. And thank you all for thinking of me during the game and how you all wanted to ban me. I promise you, during the midway through the third quarter, I was ready to not appear on this podcast ever again. Once they tied up the game at 27-all, I was like, God, I'm not invited back anymore, am I?
Hey, it was a great time to reverse some juju.
Yeah.
A lot of the Fresno guys in here, they've only seen a couple losses, right? I'm curious if the person who said they were like 0-9 last week went to that game, because that would be like the ultimate tell.
Yeah. This week I'm going, my dad's going, and they're wearing Navy jerseys. So this is a whole thing, man.
Hey, listen, man, if Harbaugh can win in Denver, he can win in the Navies as well.
True.
And he won obviously several games in Navy as a player. So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We'll see what it is. All right, let's get to our game scores here. I'll go first. I do unfortunately have the Chargers losing. The Ravens, off of a loss under John Harbaugh, have a winning percentage of like 85%. It's a moment in time where they generally shine pretty well. The Steelers, coming off of a loss against the Steelers is always tough for them. It is a moment where the Ravens are kind of teetering on like wild card versus maybe hosting a game, like winning the division. This is a super important game for the Ravens playoff chances, and it is a super important game for the Chargers as well. I just think that the Ravens are going to be extremely motivated to get a win, and I'm a little worried about not having Denzel Perryman this week. I'm a little worried about not having a fully healthy Khalil Mack this week against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. It's a little difficult for me to look at this defense not fully healthy and feel like they can get, a couple turnovers, a few stops, things like that. So I do think that the Ravens are going to put up some points. That being said, I do think the Chargers offense will be able to kind of keep pace. Like, I don't think this is a blowout by any means. I think this is a game where, maybe Lamar makes a play at the end, or maybe they stop Herbert at the end. So yes, unfortunately, I do have the Ravens winning this game. I'll say officially 30-26 is my prediction.
Yeah, this is. I feel like we keep moving the goalposts, or at least I have, where it's like, well, this is when we find out what the team is really like. No, well, this is when we find out when the team is, what they're really like. And we've had different games like that against maybe the Chiefs or the Steelers, definitely against the Bengals, trying to figure out what this team might really be like. But this is the week where I think we find out what this team is actually like, because, I mean, their wins this season have been good wins. And as we've talked about, they've beaten the opponents that are across from them. But it is the Raiders, Panthers, Broncos at the time, Cardinals, Saints, Browns, Titans, and Bengals. Bengals, very good offense. Bad team. Thank you, kicker, for missing 2 field goals. So it's really tricky because this is one of the best teams they'll face all year. You could argue, even though they played the Bengals just last week, that this is the best offense that they'll play all year. And that's a very easy argument. I think it's the most balanced, best overall ways to beat you offense they've played all year, which will make things difficult. And when you're missing, especially if you tell me there's no Cam Hart, no Denzel Perryman, Khalil Mack is 50-50, stuff like that, you're very worried about this game. And you just mentioned the defensive line. That's a great defensive line that's going to get after, the tackles will be fine. Slater and Alt, I don't really have any concerns, but that's a great interior, better interior against the Chargers shaky one. But I was in those stands on Sunday, man.
Hey, let's go.
And I gotta look, I don't get many times to do this. One day I'll have a kid and we won't have a podcast anymore. So I got to do this while I can. I'm going to try to be positive on this one. I was in the stands. We're going to break the curse officially this time. We're going to win in a freaking Navy jersey. I'm going to have the Chargers barely winning this one, but I'll have them winning 24-23. Cameron Dicker announces to the world that he's that guy. 24-23 Chargers.
No better way to do it than against the legend Justin Tucker. So, I could certainly see that kind of game, coming to fruition. I think this game weirdly could be like a defensive slugfest. Like, I know people are saying like the Ravens are not a good defense, and I understand that. They have a great few players, right? Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Nnamdi Madubuike, Marlon Humphrey. Those are all really, really good players. I could just kind of see the Harbaughs just like looking across the field, be like, you know what? I'm going to out physical your ass today. And Gus Edwards is getting 20 carries, and Derrick Henry's getting 30 carries. Like, I could just see them kind of trying to prove a point and trying to see who could be more physical. At the same time, this is Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert. This could easily be a shootout. This is the 2 of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. So it's a game where I could see go a lot of different ways. I hate to be that guy, but I just.
You're probably right, by the way. Like you are probably more correct in the loss department. I just
obviously, I hope I'm wrong. I
100%.
want the Chargers to win. It's better for me financially, and it makes way more of a fun season for the Chargers to win. And I would love to see it. Sometimes we got to put our, analyst cap game on here and see what happens. So it's going to be fun either way. I do think this is going to be a super, super entertaining game. Great opportunity for the Chargers to kind of announce to the world what they're about. A lot of people talking about them, but winning on Monday night would obviously kind of cement their status here as a potential contender.
Got to give Steven a quick shout out here because Reality Check says Steven loves to be this guy. That's potentially true. I don't recall how often we've differed on the outcome of a game. But Steven got on a dueling mock drafts episode and took Joe Alt to see what that kind of scenario would play out for the Chargers. Sycamore took Marvin Harrison Jr. I took Malik Neighbors. Steven said, you know what? Let's consider this to stick Joe Alt. Sometimes being that guy's not too bad. Granted, not that Joe Alt was some terrible prospect, but at the time, and we read all the comments, that was not a favored move by Steven there. Didn't turn out so bad. I also am just curious. There's the Ravens have an article on their website. All 16 former Ravens now on the Chargers.
Yeah.
which includes coaches and Eric Tomlinson and Sam Mustipher. So, whatever, but it's a bit of a revenge. It's the most revenge game I can think of the Chargers have ever had. So I think maybe that plays a factor there. Would be a huge one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Chargers got the GM from the Ravens tree. The assistant GM was in Baltimore. The defensive coordinator was in Baltimore. So the Chargers are very familiar with Lamar Jackson. They're very familiar with, the kind of offense the Ravens want to run, right? The Ravens do, I would say their offense is kind of 50-50 between what Greg Roman runs and what Todd Monken has brought to the table. They still do a lot of the stereotypical Greg Roman run games and things like that. So there's a ton of familiarity that can play towards your advantage, but sometimes it doesn't really matter sometimes just because it's the NFL. So it could help them a lot. At the end of the day, you still have to try and stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, who are two of the best players at their positions in the league. So listen, this is a Chargers fan podcast. We are Chargers fans. I want the Chargers to win.
Yeah.
But I just kind of think that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry have a different gear that they can get to than the Chargers. And, I think there's a very good chance that the Ravens are playing in February and the Chargers are playing into January, but maybe not February. So I have viewed the Ravens as a potential Super Bowl winner through basically the entire calendar year for the NFL. And I think they are, unfortunately, the better team right now, even though their defense is bad. I still expect the Chargers to keep pace. I just have kind of viewed the Ravens as one of those potential teams for all season, basically.
Yeah, the thing about their defense that you mentioned, they've struggled, but there's plenty of names on that defense.
Yeah.
So at any point, Kyle Hamilton has the Kyle Hamilton takeover game, and it's oh shit, this is a whole different defense this week. So yeah, I'm truly just going off the emotional bet here.
That's great.
If I were more actual rational thinking, I'd probably pick the Chargers to lose. I'm purely going off the emotions because I will be voiceless on Monday, or excuse me, Monday, but Tuesday at work after the game.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing next week is Thanksgiving break. So
that's right. I'm gonna, See, I can if they lose, I can just eat my sorrows away.
Yeah, there you go. Although if they lose, that is a few days later, so you would have to pre-Thanksgiving.
Not a problem. No problem, buddy.
So it's a fun matchup. I can't wait to see how everything unfolds. I do think Justin Herbert will have some moments. Obviously, primetime Herbert is a very real thing, and so it should be a lot of fun. All right, that is going to do it for us tonight. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did we have any more super chats? I think we had a couple.
Did we get this from Gabriel yet?
No. Gabriel says Jim Harbaugh era breaking curses. Win in Denver. Win over the Bengals, and I'm calling it win in all Navy. Were the Bengals cursed? Oh, I guess that was the Freezer Bowl. I assume that's what that comment is about.
Oh, dang. I just assumed that was a Tyler hasn't seen a decent win curse because they beat the Bengals. Well, Joe Burrow's 0-3 against them.
Yeah.
But the Navy jersey one, yes, that is a big one.
Yeah, it's so annoying because the Navy jerseys are awesome.
They're awesome. And now I hate them.
Yeah. So shout out Gabriel, appreciate that.
Yes, thank
Gruder McBolt says pull it down, which is the Harbaugh thing. So
Yep.
pull it down. Appreciate Gruder.
Mhm.
I love the jersey in his name. It says I am Groot. That's fantastic.
That's nice. That's awesome.
And then Nicholas Petrilli says no play of Roman's works. It's all Herbert ad-libbing. Interesting take.
I disagree. I think specifically, and even on that McConkey play to end the game, they do a very good job when it's intentional, and I mean this like with intention, getting McConkey to specifically either motioning inside the last minute, free him up, get the spacing right for him. I've started to come around on Greg Roman, but I think this is a game we'll see like what they really have, what he really has in the bag if they score and the Ravens score early.
Yeah, Greg Roman has done a lot of good things, I would say, after the bye. You know, if you watch the first 4 games and we're super frustrated by the offense, I totally get that. But, you know, they're, I think, 3rd in the league in early pass rate right now. They're doing a lot of good things from a play action standpoint, RPO standpoint. They're inspiring Justin Herbert to run more, which is fantastic to see. The interior offensive line is slowly starting to figure things out. Again, different beast this week. They're creating vertical opportunities for Ladd that I don't think many people really expected. And so they're doing a lot of good things on offense. They just have to be more consistently on schedule. They're still bottom in the league in 3-and-out rate, which is very, very frustrating at times. But for the most part, I think I feel the same as you. I feel like Greg Roman is starting to build some positivity into how he's calling games, and it's been fun to see. Mighty Kev wants to know, would I shave my beard for its weight in gold? And the answer to that is no, I would not, because that would only be like 8 ounces. Like facial hair doesn't weigh a lot.
Yeah, I can't imagine that does much for you.
I guess the question here is, do I get to grow it back? If I don't get to grow it back, then the answer is definitely no. Like,
if the Chargers win a Super Bowl, like all my students get A's, all whatever, like everything. Yeah, handstand watch commences. I don't remember what my deal was. I think it was if they win both games, I do a handstand and sing the Pokemon theme song. It was just the one. I apologize, but that's the new one.
Yeah. Take the top off, Steven. Yeah, like I would shave my head for gold. Like that's fine. Like if it grows.
Oh, I thought you meant like take your shirt off.
I hope not. I'm definitely not doing that on screen.
Hey, we have it listed as not made for kids, so you know, all good.
Oh my goodness, what a fun way to end the show.
Yes,
all right.
But
at the same time, Tyler. Okay. All right. Reality Check said no. I assume that's to you. I think he and I were on the same page about shaving my head.
No moves.
Oh man, no comment. But yeah, all right. So we'll be of course recording after the game on Monday night. We are kind of waiting on Saturday, so we'll let you guys know if we're gonna do our usual Saturday show. But yeah, we appreciate all the super chats and all the comments today. Make sure to leave us a rating, review, like, subscribe. All that good stuff does help continue to grow the show. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, Bolt up.